Welcome everyone. It's BRAP Saturday, 11. That's right, Def Lloyd, BRAP time. Yeah, sorry about that. Just been busy with sports. Actually, I'm late because kids had to weigh in for football. My two boys actually play football, the one 12-year old and the one 7-year old. And so they both had weigh ins. They play in the same league, but just obviously different age groups. And so they had weigh ins this morning. So just got back from that. That's why I'm late. But welcome. I'm here. Thank you everyone for your patience. Got a lot to talk about. It's going to be me. It's probably going to be me solo today. Some of the other BRAP guys will jump in, but got a lot to talk about. Um, gonna dive into the PlayStation Live Service Initiative. I mean, is it in trouble? Is it a total failure? I think those are questions that many of us are asking with the latest news of not Hunter, I'm sorry, Horizon Hunters Gathering reportedly being reduced and stripped of live service features after poor player testing. So, that's kind of sparked the conversation around Sony's live service initiative, which initially started out with 12 games. We remember Jim Ryan talking about 12 live service games. And look, it's been a bit of a challenge, right? I think we can all agree there for Sony and really sticking the landing or executing this new live service initiative. So we'll talk about that. We have Take Two issuing subpoenas to to Microsoft and Discord. So that's kind of interesting around the GTA 6 leaks, which is, it's interesting. It's this whole GTA 6 leaks thing, and some of this has to do with the anger around Take Two Rockstar having a or announcing that GTA 6 will be sold digital only. Like, and so the first thing that really came to my mind, well, my initial thoughts on this is like, okay, why are you leaking things? Like, why? I mean, because they've announced that this game's going to be 100% digital. It made me think about society in general. Like, where are we as a society today when people are this upset over something that's so trivial? And look, and I get it. We've talked about the physical versus digital thing, right? I get it. There are consumers out there that want physical media. I understand that, and I understand there are people that collect physical media. I get that. Look, and I've said on this show, I'm not totally thrilled about PlayStation moving all digital because I, on occasion, will do like to buy physical discs so that I can trade it into GameStop for another game, right? Get my GameStop credit, use that credit towards a new game purchase, kind of help subsidize my gaming purchases. I won't be able to do that anymore. But at the end of the day, as a consumer, right? As a consumer, I have a choice. I can either decide to participate in the PlayStation ecosystem, or I could say, no, I'm not. I'm taking my business elsewhere. It's like Definitely said, social media, dude. And so I it's absolutely amazing that there are people out there that will go to these great lengths over something that at the grand scheme of things isn't that impactful, right? And I mean the grand scheme of things. I mean just life in general. There are things that are going to happen to you that are more impactful in your life than Sony announcing that they're going all digital. And the reaction to this, where this person feels the need to leak and issue threats, is just crazy to me. Like, it doesn't make like, just this isn't like to me, this isn't the thinking of a rational, well-rounded, or well-adjusted human being. And hopefully this person is an adult, but unfortunately, this person probably is an adult. An adult that's not well adjusted. Like, what's gonna happen to this person when they actually run into things in their lives that are completely out of their control, that they literally have no choice, health being one of them, right? So so we have this news. Let me just jump into this here. This article here by Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. Take Two. Let me share my screen here. There we go. Take Two asks court to subpoena trove of records from Microsoft and Discord as it hunts for GTA 6 leaker. So, yeah, the hunt is on to find out who's behind the unprecedented spree of GTA 6. And the interesting thing, too, is that some of these leaks are a year old, but it's also like I also look at this as this person like is sort of having the opposite effect because they're kind of doing free marketing for Take Two for GTA 6. They're like they're probably putting more eyes on GTA 6. All right, Take Two, the parent company of Grand Theft Auto Rockstar Games, has filed multiple subpoena requests in a U.S. federal district court seeking information related to the recent spread of GTA 6 gameplay videos. The company has petitioned. Hold on a sec here. The company has petitioned both Microsoft Discord for the release of any records related to various online accounts involved in posting and sharing leaks of the game ahead of its November launch. This includes user data as well as data about any associated OneDrive or linked Xbox accounts. The copyrighted material includes, but is not limited to, audiovisual content, artwork, images, dialogue, or other creative elements. Reads a petition for subpoena filed with the Southern District Court of New York, August 20th. On August 20th, it continues. Take Two, through its counsel of record, has submitted a sworn declaration confirming that the purpose for which the DMCA subpoena is sought is to obtain the identity of alleged infringer or infringers, and that such information will be used for the purpose of protecting Take Two's rights. So this is the latest and greatest as it relates to the Take Two leaks. So, let's see, the one petition which refers a GitHub repository where infringing content was posted gives Microsoft until September 4th. So Microsoft owns GitHub. Gives Microsoft until September 4th to produce all internal Microsoft business records and investigative records associated with Microsoft's internal investigation of the cyber leak persona sufficient to identify the user's persons and or identities associated with that persona. It continues all identifying information associated with all user accounts that are where members are communicating with the Discord servers listed below during the time period from June 1st, 2026 to present. For those accounts, provide any associated device telemetry records where one or more of the tool file artifacts below were present on the system. For each returned account, provide the account ID, registration email, registration, and last login IP addresses, phone number, link connections, Google, Xbox, etc. Any associated device identifiers, Machine Guild, MSA, and content related to Grand Theft Auto, Rockstar, or CyberLeak from their OneDrive account. Discord has the same deadline to provide a trove of records related to all user accounts that were that involve CyberLeak, Cinematic Rockstar, and Surfer 24K, plus replacement handles CyberLeak West, Sir West, as well as Odyssey Egg, Odyssey Public Brand Guild, Discord, Odyssey, and Dark Viper AU editor, server, Discord, etc., etc. I'm not going to read all that. The last one is for the popular GTA 5. Twitch and YouTube streamer Matthew Matt Judge. They're asking for my Discord info. I mentioned by name. Judge wrote in response to X. I don't know anything. That isn't my editor's Discord. There aren't even any clips of the leaks in either of my Discords. I'm confused. I did say he can't that he can't drive multiple times, so maybe I caused him to write Cyberleak can't drive on the most recent clips. Maybe you visit my Discord. I don't know. Rockstar hasn't emailed me. I suspect if they thought I knew something personally, they would do so. Everyone is talking about these leaks. I'm not. I'm not special. Hopefully, the identity of the person or groups responsible for spreading multiple gameplay clips revealing new features and never before seen parts of GTA 6 world. Mechanics is yet to be uncovered, and Rockstar Games hasn't yet commented on the situation. The clips have been posted under the alias CyberLeak, circulated from a site with a manifesto which has called on game companies to stop practices like digital pre-orders and the locking of finished content behind paywalls or as fake DLC. But the individual group, look, if you have issues with incomplete games, don't buy them. Look, and I'm not saying that um, that we can't voice our opinion of games releasing in or shipping in a bad state. Like I don't disagree with that, but they are avenues. They are things we can do as consumers, like reading reviews, reading or going to sites like Digital Foundry, where we can get an idea of a game's performance. Right? We could read user reviews. We often talk about the Steam community here on this show. How the Steam user community is a pretty good source for if you're interested in the game and kind of on the fence. The Steam community reviews are pretty solid, good barometer of where a game is. Um, so we have those options, right? We should exercise, use those options, those tools that we have as consumers. I don't. Sometimes I think like we don't talk enough about the options we have. Oh, there's an echo here. Sorry. The options that we have as consumers. And so that is something that should be discussed, right? That we don't have to buy things. We have choice. We have some say as consumers. I mean, this whole physical digital thing. People were saying, well, Sony and the other publishers have forced us into this digital ecosystem, this digital world. And it's like, look, I don't disagree that Sony and publishers, storefronts, digital storefronts, they presented the option of buying games digitally, but that movement to digital would have worked unless consumers had accepted the idea or accepted the notion of buying games digitally, right? So consumers played a part in that demand of digital content. PlayStation could have propped up their digital storefront, and if consumers had said no, Sony would have had to shut it down. It's just basic economics, supply and demand. Beastbook says it's just like everyone's spamming no dis no buy 1,000 times on every PlayStation post. All you do is increasing engagement, pushing every PlayStation post to the top of everyone's feed. Yes, pretty much. I mean, hey, there's this blackout date. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna do a blackout date, like do it on a date. Dude, don't do it like on a random Tuesday afternoon when there's no releases or Monday when there's no game releases. I think if you're serious about a blackout date, do the release of the release date of GTA 6. That's my 2 cents. Interesting. I was reading some of these posts here. Some guy responded, had these packages were sitting on the common GTA encrypted servers. Take Two could have easily traced them back to online IP, but these bills are standalone packages that can't be linked through Rockstar shared servers. This is definitely an employee or ex-employee who's gone rogue. I did read some of that too, that maybe there's an ex-employee involved or employee involved in this. But uh, I will say this: there are possible legal ramifications here for this person. This person could potentially face, or these persons could potentially face criminal charges. I guess it's just really depending on it really depends heavily on how they obtained the footage. Just really not merely on the fact that they posted, but how um, they obtained how they obtained the footage. And if If CyberLeak hacked Rockstar, Take-Two, Microsoft, an employee account or, some other, protected system to obtain this, the material, GTA 6 material, that could potentially trigger federal computer crime charges, which is falls under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, in addition to any copyright-related issues. And then if, they stole credentials, access cloud storage without any kind of authorization or obtained stolen files, there could be some additional charges, criminal charges. Um, but again, depending on all the facts of the situation here. Um, yeah, so it's look again, Take Two's current action. It's not by itself criminal prosecution. Again, the DMCA's subpoenas are an attempt to identify who the alleged leaker is. So this thing, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out, but yeah, this person actively stole, hacked into, um, databases to, obtain this material to leak. Yeah, they're like I said earlier, there could definitely be some criminal charges here. BRAP, Lady Gamer says, "BRAP, I do think it's ex Rockstar dev doing this, and they don't wanna take it out on them for maybe losing their job." Yeah, I mean, I mean, it very well could be an ex-dev, but maybe. I mean, again, we don't know for sure, but it could be. What's up, Franco Tex? Actually, you know what? I need to, I forgot to share the link here with my compadres. See if I can get B Money in here to discuss Herman Holst. I think B said Herman's got to go. I think he said that in the BRAP chat. I know B hasn't been happy with Herman Holst. I think that look, I the live service initiative has kind of been the one black eye for PlayStation this generation. I think it's been the one black eye for PlayStation this gen. And I see people calling for his head. Hey, Herman's got to go. I'm not so sure about that, but all right. We do have Circana numbers for July 2026. Interestingly enough, Xbox will no longer be. I can't even talk. Xbox and EA, actually, EA now being a publicly held company, or not. I'm sorry, not a publicly held company, privately held company now. They're no longer reporting their digital sales to Circana, and Xbox isn't reporting their digital sales to Circana either, which is kind of interesting. Like, I don't, every and I'm just the Xbox not reporting. The Xbox thing, with Xbox not reporting digital sales, um, it's kind of interesting because I mean, like, obviously, we're still gonna like we're still going to. Oh, let me stop sharing the screen. Someone's in big trouble. Exactly. The Xbox thing's kind of interesting. I think that when Xbox has done this in the past, I can certainly understand this perspective where I've seen this on, some other content creators talk about this, but I think when the past Xboxes stopped sharing certain KPIs, certain metrics or whatever, it's because that particular part of the business isn't doing well. So, Microsoft stopped supplying Xbox digital sales directly to Circana. That was a news story yesterday. Matt Piscatella confirmed that Microsoft was no longer a participating publisher beginning with the July 2026 report. We don't know why. Let me just be clear. Microsoft hasn't publicly explained why. So, I'm just saying in the past when they've done this, it's because of potentially some performance related issues. We don't know for sure. I'll just be very clear there. Because again, Microsoft hasn't publicly explained why. Um, Now, obviously, on the flip side here, Microsoft by withdrawing the digital sales from Circana. Microsoft's basically giving outsiders less visibility into determining exactly how Xbox, Bethesda, Activision games are selling digitally in the US, right? Um, and it's kind of interesting because like Microsoft is one of the bigger publishers now. Um, so I think they're not necessarily making it easy for like companies like Circana or other analysts to compare Microsoft's performance across Xbox, PlayStation, other platforms, things like that. Um, Now, again, the Circana is still going to track, all things Xbox. They just won't have that information um, for their digital sales. Bespoke says Xbox just wants to control the narrative. They can have their fan base push false narratives that cannot be proven incorrectly. I mean, the Alinea analytics always estimates way high for Xbox. Yeah, I don't put much weight into Alinea analytics. Yeah, I don't, that's like so Bespoke, I've seen some chatter around Xbox wants to control the narrative. I mean, I don't know, maybe. Um, I don't know if I totally agree with that, only because they still have to they still release their quarterly financials. And so the quarterly financials are going to give us insight into how the business is doing anyway. Right. So yeah, they may remove digital sales to they may no longer be providing digital sales to Circana. Right. But I don't know if it's because they want to control the narrative because they're still releasing their quarterly financials. And we see how the business is performing, or we see how the business is performing every quarter. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know how that really controls the narrative when we get to see their financials every quarter. T-Rock says, double O 007 sales estimates on Xbox were only 400,000 to 4,000,000. So was that Alinea Analytics that reported that 400,000? Again, T-Rock, I don't put much weight into Alinea Analytics, but hey, congrats to 007. First Light selling 4 million copies. That's awesome. Now the timing of I will say this, the timing of Microsoft deciding not to give Circana visibility into its digital software businesses through their digital software business. Timing that's kind of interesting considering that we saw that Xbox content services revenue was down fiscal year 2026, you know? And again, that's kind of back to your point, Bespoke. We're gonna see those in the financials. So I don't know that Microsoft's gonna be able to control a narrative if they're releasing their, quarterly financials and we're seeing how the overall business is performing. All right, some interesting, tidbits from the Circana numbers. Total spending, was 4.5 billion for July 2026. That was down 10% year over year. Hardware spending, 282 million, down 29% year over year. Now, I'm not surprised by the decline in hardware spending. And actually hardware units was down 39% year over year too. And I think that's a couple things. I think a couple things are happening here with the decline in hardware year over year. One, obviously, the the elephant in the room here is the rising cost of hardware. We are in, at least in my lifetime that I can remember, a console generation where we're towards the tail end of the gen, and the price for of consoles has gone up. Usually it's the we usually see the opposite happen at this point in the console generation where we see lower price points, and obviously we're not seeing that because of the RAM shortage, things like that. But Gears will get numbers of players for sure. Yeah, I mean, we probably won't know, Lady Games, really won't know what Gears E-Day sold. So yeah, so I'm not really surprised, by that, by hardware spending, units being down because look, frankly, they're just really expensive. I mean, we saw the, Xbox, 25th anniversary console. Um, I think the Series X console, I think it's a great looking console. It reminds me of the green OG Xbox, original Xbox console that they had, the Halo one they had 20 something, what was that? That's probably 22 years ago, 23 years ago when that console released. And that Series X Anniversary Edition is the is gonna be the most expensive if again, the prices were leaked. You're looking at $900 in the EU, $900 in the US. That's $100 more than the regular Xbox Series X. It's gonna be the most expensive Xbox Series console. So it's gonna be one of those enthusiast devices, collector's devices, those who like collecting limited release hardware. I mean, it's gonna be for those folks, but all right, average hardware price, in July of 2026 was $542. That's up 16% year over year. Physical game software was $85 million. Now, this is the lowest July tracked month figure since 1995. Um, that's kind of interesting. I mean, like if I look at the premium to game sales, it's going to be, I think that number will probably jump back up next coming months as we get some of the big releases, Call of Duty, obviously GTA 6. But the premium game sales for July, these are top 10 by dollar sales. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was number one. That's the kind of like, I don't even think that's a remaster, is it? It's got just a re-release. EA Sports College Football 2027. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced was number three. EA Sports MVP bundle. That's the, I believe it's the $150. Check the price here. That's the what's the price of that bundle? 100 excuse me, it's $150. So that includes Madden 2027 and College Football 2027. And so it's interesting, like, it's funny because we always hear the conversation around gaming's too expensive, people can't afford it. And then we saw this last year too with EA MVP, the MVP, can't even talk, the EA Sports MVP bundle that it charted Circana too last year. It's $150 purchase. And it's outsold games like Halo Campaign Evolved, Call of Duty Black Ops, 007 First Light. I mean, it's an expensive game. Call of Duty. Speaking of Halo did chart at number 6. I don't think we'll get any official sales numbers. Of course, I was talking to Logic about this, and he's like, it was a weak month. I told him, I said, I want my flowers. You just said it was a weak month. I will say this: my takeaway from this chart, the top 10 games, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I mean, look, the Black Ops titles, these old Black Ops games. I mean, they two of them charted ahead of newer games. Black Ops 2, number 1. Black Ops is number 5. Also, College Football 27 would have ranked first if individual game sales and the MVP bundle were combined. So Circana's chart shows those skews separately. As I mentioned, Halo debuted 6 with only a few track days. So the rankings actually not a clean full month performance of Halo Campaign Evolved. Resident Evil Requiem is actually it's still the top selling game year to date, followed by 007 First Light and Crimson Desert. Matt also noted subscriptions were the only spending segment to grow in July. Physicals collapse is especially stark. Xbox represented just over 4% of U.S. new physical software spending year to date versus roughly 32% PlayStation and 63% Nintendo. So Matt, just again, physicals collapse is especially stark. So the interesting thing about the remakes and ports, like People always say that, oh, developers, they keep making remakes and ports of older games, and they do because they sell. It's clear. I mean, nostalgia. People clearly want or are willing to pay for those older games. What to do for tomorrow? PlayStation blackout. Is the PlayStation blackout tomorrow? T Rock said the most pre-order game on PSN is a $150 version of 2K. That doesn't surprise me either. The Halo 6 thing's interesting because I was thinking about this. Like, like it charting 6 for the month of July, despite having only a few days. So we don't have a full month. We don't have a clean full month performance verdict for Halo campaign evolved. Like I'm wondering, like, does that is that encouraging because of the limited tracking days? Its performance, is that encouraging? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it tracks this coming month. The physical sales thing is kind of interesting, with all the talk about physical digital. I think Matt's saying that subscription are the only spending segment to grow in July. Physicals collapse is especially stark. U.S. new physical software spending year to date versus, I mean, this is wow. Lady Game says I'm not doing the blackout at all. I think it's so ridiculous. Bespoke says I think Jason Schreier mentioned on the Triple Click podcast that statistics suggest that remakes do best when the original game is 5 to 7 years old. Yeah, but how old is Call of Duty Black Ops? I think that's definitely more than 5 to 7 years old. Yeah, it could be an outlier, but still worth noting. All right, we have news that Compulsion Games officially separates from Xbox, according to GameIndustry.biz. The team told me we'd rather eat rocks and drink gasoline than be split up. Studio regains ownership of its IP and publishing rights. Compulsion Games is now independent from Xbox, with management acquiring both the studio and its staff. I did this deal for the team first and foremost. CEO Guilherme Provost told GamesBeat, I asked the team, do you want to stay together? The team told me we'd rather eat rocks and drink gasoline than be split up. Provost declined to disclose the current staff count. GamesBeat reports that some employees left after Provost warned of a possible closure before Xbox announced it would spin out the studio as a platform holder laid off 20% of staff. Now, there's still more layoffs coming at Xbox, another 1,600. Everything is relative, said Provost, compared to all of us losing our jobs on July 6th. This is a pretty good deal. I would say the exit was gracious on Microsoft's part. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think where I might disagree with Provost is that, yeah, like, obviously, like, In the short term, this is better than completely having the studio shut down on July 6th, but in the long term, what does compulsion do now? Right? They need to figure out how to keep the lights on because they're no longer funded or under a large or never they don't have a large backing of Microsoft. He says, "The moments like these are for change and opportunity. Starting ventures when times are tough means that companies start to build the right bones. They understand the need for being thrifty and lean because of the economic context. I think we'll have really solid bones. This is a similar climate to when I started my studio originally. We're excited to gain back the rights to our intellectual properties, and to keep making interests, weird stories, and weird worlds. So, look, if you want to support Compulsion Games, I would encourage you to do so. If they're one of your studios, go out and buy their games. Go buy South of Midnight, We Happy Few, Contrast. The publishing rights are also transferring back to Compulsion. It's just that there's a transition period where that happens with different platform holders buying the games to support the studio as a result of that change. According to GamesBeat, Provost has been meeting with various parties to secure a stable future funding for the studio and is exploring different alternatives for permanent funding. Compulsion aims to become self-sustaining. Provost is currently gathering information, exploring partnerships, and stated the studio is open to collaborating with other developers and IP holders. I actually was going to talk about that, ways that they can um, keep their doors open. So I think I said this last week. I know a lot of people were there's some content creators, some of the community that were pom-pomming and happy that and we're basically saying things like, "Oh, this is a great deal for Compulsion." Even Tim Schafer, Double Fine. By the way, go out and support them too. If you're a fan of Double Fine, go out and buy their games. Go buy their games. I mean, if you really are a fan of their work, Compulsion, of Double Fine, seriously, go out and buy. Even if you subscribed to Game Pass and you played those games, just go out Steam or whatever Xbox storefront, PlayStation, go buy them. Support the developers. So I think maybe a couple upsides here. I mean, I think the one thing that a lot of people miss in the conversation around, oh, this isn't so bad, right? Microsoft spun them off. They didn't, they allowed to keep their IP. This isn't so bad. Well, they now have to find funding now. They have to figure out how to keep the lights on. And that's the part that a lot of people missed in that conversation, right? Obviously, the upside for Compulsion is the creative and platform freedom they have now. They could pitch their games to multiple publishers, they can release everywhere. Well, Xbox was kinda doing that. They can choose the project scope without serving Xbox's portfolio priorities, Game Pass. And it sounds like the team, based on some of their comments, I think would rather drink gasoline or something than be broken up. The studio's preserved its team and culture rather than, as Provost said, rather than being broken up. So, I think South and maybe South of Midnight's like it did receive some positive critical recognition. It had a very distinct visual presentation identity. That might help Compulsion maybe with some of the conversations they're having around funding or maybe pitching new ideas to other publishers. But Those are some of the potential upsides that I thought of for compulsion, but there are some new risks here. I think it's important for us, and I think we were having this conversation, like, I again, go back to some of the conversation on social media, people were saying, "Oh, well, this is great, could have been worse." Well, no, it's not. It actually can be worse. They don't secure funding, but there's some new risk here, and as I just mentioned, the financial risk. They have to account for payroll, benefits, facilities, technology, QA, distribution. These are now all existential costs that they have to absorb because they're no longer under Microsoft. And independence for a developer doesn't mean self-sufficiency. And we don't know, again, I don't know the cost of, the development south of midnight, right? But, assuming that project was expensive, I mean, and depending on the funding they get, I mean, it could be difficult for that studio to kind of reproduce that kind of work or that kind of product on whatever funding they receive. Maybe the funding they receive is smaller, right? So maybe the next project needs to be smaller in scope. And and I think from a risk perspective, you pretend now you're looking at, what does this mean for compulsion if they have a delay, cancellation of a game, or they have an underperforming launch? That can threaten the entire studio when there isn't this parent company or this parent company's portfolio to absorb those losses. And then if those things start happening, right? Or maybe there's some difficulty in securing funding. You start thinking about what that means from a talent acquisition perspective, right? You start thinking about what that means for your current employees. And I've seen this where when things get shaky, um, and employees will start exploring other opportunities. Because in this case, maybe some of the developers, I'm gonna say this is going to happen, but this is a potential risk, right? They may look at other larger publishers because those publishers could offer more stable compensation, bonuses, tools, internal mobility, things like that. Or they may just get out of the gaming industry altogether, which we've seen some of that happen as well. So I mean, look, the biggest thing that I would say that Compulsion's biggest advantage here is that, yeah, it left with its core team intact and its IP, but it also lost some of that. It also lost the financial insulation of being part of Xbox or Microsoft. So I think one of the things that Provost mentioned in the article, I believe he mentioned it looking at other partnerships, and to me that probably to me that says more that you guys crack me up in the chat here. um, to me, with just this partnering and exploring other avenues, that sort of sounds like they're looking at maybe gaining work through co-development, work for hire, license adaptations. So those are things that they could potentially look at as ways to generate revenue, keep the lights on. But again, I if you are a fan of compulsion games, go out and even if you played, no, I said this earlier, even if you played South of Midnight, go just buy it. Go out and buy it. Support the developer. If they're one of your favorite developers, because I know a lot of people are high on compulsion when Microsoft bought them, put your money where your mouth is. Go out and support them. Right? Because while they were able to be spun off and keep most of their staff and regain ownership of their intellectual property, they still need to figure out how to keep the lights on. Seal Wolf Swim says at the moment, PS6 is looking like an afterthought. The price and not having exclusives is a tough sale. I mean, like, so these are always interesting. I always find these comments interesting because one, we don't know the price of the PlayStation 6. Uh, One, we don't know for a fact that they'll have no exclusives. So I guess Seal. So when you say they won't have exclusives, do you mean PlayStation 6 only exclusives? T-Rex says, let's see if Compulsion's next game, if they make one, is on Xbox because they definitely knew what sales bridge Xbox looked like. Maybe, but they may think the juice is worth the squeeze. I mean, I don't know. Or being a smaller studio, like some smaller studios do, they may target maybe a PC only release or a PC PlayStation release or Nintendo. Oh, you said PS6 only exclusives, since they'll be on, PS5. Yeah, I mean, I certainly I understand that perspective. I mean, I think we talked about on this show where, it was last week with B Money, where we think that the PlayStation ecosystem is gonna mirror something like what we see at PC, where we have different hardware tiers, where the PlayStation 6 will offer you the best experience, the best performance for their first party games. Now, if you're someone like me, right, I have a 5080 RTX GPU on my PC, so yeah, I'm gonna want the PlayStation 6 because I want the best performance. Yeah, no, T-Rock, no, yeah, no, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. Like, if they did skip Xbox, it wouldn't surprise me, only because it has a smaller install base of the of the 3 consoles that are out there right now. I mean, we've seen smaller studios skip Xbox in the past, so again, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, Beastbook, I just think that those days I think are gone. PS5 launch when it had 4 exclusives. I just think those days are gone. The business is evolved to revolve is evolved to be about. Let me see how I explain this. I'm sorry I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I got up early, so coffee hasn't kicked in yet. But I think the business evolved into something differently than what we've grown accustomed to. If you've been console gaming as long as I have, for the last 40 something years, where they're now these living, breathing ecosystems right? Where now you have these different tiers, right? Performance tiers. And we saw this last generation, PS4, PS4 Pro. But I think what you're gonna find next generation, in my opinion, I think what might happen next generation is that, at least with PlayStation, they'll continue to support PlayStation 5. They'll have the PlayStation 6, right? Because there are people that are stuck on these new evergreen live service games that aren't moving on to the new hardware because they don't need to, unless, Epic decides to stop supporting Fortnite on PlayStation 5. They'll have no choice, but well, they'll have a choice. They can either decide, to onboard into another live service game or buy PlayStation 6. But I think that's what's gonna happen next generation, in my opinion. I think that PlayStation, because they're still spend, right? They're still spend on the PlayStation 4. People are still spending money there. People still be spending money on PlayStation 5. And if the consoles remain at $600, $700, there are going to be people that won't upgrade to a PlayStation 6. And that will remain to those live service games, buying skins, which, by the way, Sony still makes money off of that, right? Beastbook says, I think every first party single player game will be exclusive the moment PlayStation 6 launches. Maybe. I mean, maybe. Sony may say, you know what, we want to push people to PlayStation 6. But I just don't think I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, only because of what I mean, you look at what they did with this generation, right? There were some cross generational first party games. Why does PlayStation first party need to continue supporting PS5? Um, because there are people still there spending money on PlayStation 5, bespoke. I don't think we're living in a day and age with the traditional console model anymore, where, especially because of the rising cost of hardware, where I think the economics have changed here, bespoke. I think that the plenty of third party games. We got to remember too. I mean, the start of this generation, they did have. When the game says I have a PlayStation 5, they did have. Okay, so I think the economics have changed in the sense that, like, the old way, if you will, it was selling hardware, razor thin margins, and then selling games to make up for hardware loss, right? But now but now the economics of the console business have changed, where you have digital spend, you have the digital storefront, right? So if there's you got to imagine, bespoke, there's going to be some demand for first party PlayStation 6 games or PlayStation games during the release of the PlayStation. I'm sorry, let me you have to imagine there are gonna be people that don't upgrade to the PlayStation 6 because they maybe feel like the cost of the PlayStation 6 is too expensive, right? And so Sony may say, "Okay, well, this is an opportunity to do cross-generational support where we can still monetize those people um, who aren't going to upgrade to the PlayStation 6." Because for them, it may make sense where, "Hey, we're not gonna leave that additional revenue on the table," which companies don't like doing. Again, assuming assuming that the juice is worth the squeeze, right? But but I would imagine it will. I don't think the PlayStation 6, especially if it launches at $600, is going to sell, at the same clip or pace of the PlayStation 5. So I just don't. Sony, look, and I think it just comes down to this. Sony makes money when people stay inside PlayStation, right? I think that's the biggest difference between like Sony and a third party publisher like EA. And even if you look at Sony's fiscal year 2026, there was something in their fiscal year 2026 that said something to the effect that its strategies to increase revenue and profits from PlayStation Plus, maximize ARPU on this PlayStation Store, and expand sales of first party software. So how do you do that? If you have a small group bespoke of people that have migrated to PlayStation 6, well, you're not going to able to you're not going to you're not you, you're going to limit yourself to the expansion of the sales of your first party software, right? So you think about ARPU, you think about consumer lifetime spend, right? You think about keeping people engaged in the platform. No, I don't I get it. Like Bespoke saying there's still going to be hundreds of third party games continuing to release cross. Yes, but there are going to be consumers that want Sony. My point is there's going to be demand, Bespoke, for first party games from people in the PlayStation ecosystem that haven't upgraded to a PlayStation 6, right? So if you could sell that first party game to those people, right? You're keeping those people engaged in the ecosystem, right? You're helping covering the cost of development because now you're not selling just to a small subset of consumer that have migrated to PlayStation 6. You're selling to a broader audience of people that are still on PlayStation 5. I mean, think of it like PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro. Like it's going to be PS6, right? If you want the definitive experience, you get a PS6. If you don't want to spend the money and you want Sony first party, you don't want to spend the money on the PS6. Well, we got a PS5 for you. Yeah, I think Sony is probably, and I get what you're saying, Bespoke, but that's the old model. Get them to upgrade, and people will upgrade for people that want that premium experience. But there are going to be people that don't want that, right? So Sony's goal, if their goal, which they've stated, you got to remember, like Sony's a they own the platform. This is a platform business. So if Sony's strategy is to increase revenue and profits from PlayStation Plus to maximize an average revenue per user on the PlayStation Store, that's how you do that. Yeah, T-Rex is there are a ton of people still on PS4. Yeah, and they're still monetizing those people, but I guess my point is I don't think because of the price of hardware, I don't think that we're gonna see as many people make that transition to PlayStation 6. I think Logic's talked about it here on the show too, where I think he had mentioned that he suspects or thinks PlayStation 6 may sell less than PlayStation 5. Doesn't mean that Sony can't make a lot of money. off the PlayStation 6. Clearly, they can. They've sold less PlayStation 5s than they have PlayStation 4s, and sold less PlayStation 5s than they did PlayStation 2. And PlayStation 2 was their top-selling console of all time, but the PlayStation 5 generation has been their most profitable PlayStation generation to date. Let me see. Nibs. Oh, Nib's here. Nib.
Hey,
Glad you
can you hear
joined us.
me out of curiosity?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
I haven't got to Herman Hulse yet. I think you want to fire him, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to have you on.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the changing landscape of the console market. Because I you probably have heard me talk about this. I think the economics around the console business has changed. My argument to the chat is I do think PlayStation, Sony will still support cross-generational content once the PlayStation 6 comes out.
Yeah.
With PlayStation 5.
One of the things you think for the life of the entire console or for a set period as is typical?
I think for a set period, I don't know. It'd be really interesting if they did it for the entire generation. I don't know if they will, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? It's one of the things I'm apprehensive about with the next generation is because we know they're going to have a PlayStation 6 handheld, which is by all intents and purposes kind of equivalent to like PS5 in a low power mode, right? The rumor is that this low power mode setting that they have for games already is actually preemptively getting games equipped for essentially the handheld, right, to run natively. And I think the danger of that is a bit like the Series S, where if throughout the generation of the PS6, you're going to have a PS6 handheld that is beholden to PS5 style specs, then essentially we have an entire generation of cross-gen, unless they will have PS6 exclusive or PS5 only, PS6 only games that don't have to run on the handheld too. So yeah, that's one of my concerns, I guess, because we're paying more and more for hardware, but in a sense, we're getting less and less for it. Likewise with this generation, because we had such a long cross-generational period.
What if it goes the way of PC, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Where software scales based on hardware. And that's what I'm thinking, because one of their mandates is to increase ARPU, right? On the digital storefront. And if people aren't going to migrate over the PlayStation 6 at scale the way they did with PS5,
exactly, yeah.
Are you going to leave those customers behind on the PS5? I mean, probably not. You know, again, I'm not arguing that they'll do it for the entire lifetime of the generation. I don't think they will. But they could if we see because this is unprecedented. We've never had a console generation where hardware has increased in price towards the latter part of the generation.
Yeah, exponentially as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this new Xbox like limited edition, right? I think it's like 900 euros.
Yeah, it's 900 euros.
There was once upon a time that the internet was uproared by hearing 599. And keep in mind, 599 was the premium high. I think it was like 60 gigs at the time or something. Hard drive version. There was a cheaper version, right? $100 less. And 599 was enough to cause outrage. And now we're at a stage where consoles that came out 5-6 years ago, actually more than that, 6 years ago, are $900. That's just insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was talking to somebody at a store. I was getting coffee somewhere, and somebody was telling me my son wants a PlayStation 5, but it's like $700, or I forget. I don't even know how much PS5 is here in the US because I don't pay attention anymore. $600, $700, whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, wow. I said, when I bought mine 6 years ago, it was $500.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely bonkers.
I mean,
I sold my PS5 for pretty much what I paid for it when the PS5 Pro came out. And then I bought my PS5 Pro on a discount. They had a voucher code, and then I got cash back as well. So I basically didn't really pay much extra for a Pro. It was very little. I think it was like £70 or something. The price of a game, right? And now the PS5 Pro is like, nearly £1,000 or whatever it is, £800, not 850 or whatever. And it's bizarre. Like, it's so crazy. But the thing is, like, I get that the 5090 and stuff is the most premium GPU you can get. But like, I was having a look the other day, and because I was like, do I build a PC now? Or is it just going to keep getting worse? And it's like
do it. Don't build one. Buy a pre-build if you can.
Pre-build, yeah.
I think pre-builds are cheaper now, because when I bought my 5080 build, I was looking at building one myself. I picked out all the parts, and actually it was cheaper at the time to do a pre-build. It was about $200 cheaper, $200 US.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not doing anything right now. Like, I think now I probably will wait like till 2028 before I do a PC build, or at least till some of the shortages die down, until this AI bubble pops. Like, we're kind of on the precipice of it bursting a little bit. I'm talking from the stock market point of view. I don't know about, in terms of RAM shortages, but certainly in terms of stock market, like the numbers aren't really adding up for a lot of these big AI companies at the moment, in terms of the revenue and profit for how much investment is taking place. So we'll see what the future holds. But yeah, I'm personally staying away from all that right now. The only reason with the PS5 I would get a PS6 is because I feel like if I sell my PS5 Pro, say a month or so before the PS6 comes out, I have a feeling I'll still get really good money for it. In fact, I probably will actually get more than what I paid for it, which is crazy. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on Valinor Tree here. It says PS6 designed for cheaper manufacturing, i.e., it's not going to cost Sony more to make a big jump on tech. The same cost to make their PS5. Like, that is a reach, buddy. Sony hasn't publicly disclosed anything PS6 related in terms of specifications, bill of materials, manufacturing costs, launch price. I mean, Totoki even said timing remains undecided, in part because of component costs, particularly the memory, right? The memory issue. The only thing that we have is, I knew leaker Kepler L2 estimated the PS6 bill of materials has risen from roughly $760 to around $960 because of memory component inflation.
Correct. Yeah.
Now that's an unofficial estimate. So I'm going to push back on your balance tree and say that they probably, I don't know where you got it designed for cheaper manufacturing, but that is none of that's been confirmed by Sony, or, I mean, it just hasn't been confirmed, period. So,
I mean, I said this on like Mooch's podcast, right? And I've never actually been more, let's just say, split with my primary hobby than I am today. Because on the one hand, I actually do think from a game quality perspective, we are actually in like a golden era of gaming. There is an abundance of quality games to play, way more releases than we actually have time to play. Like, this September, I look at the release schedule and I'm just like, what?
Stacked, right? Yeah.
Right. Like, how do I even? And then obviously you've got bigger titles coming out like GTA and things like that. And I'm sure I'll invest an inordinate amount of time in that as well. But the point is, like, that I'm having to like not buy games that historically in other years would have been like game of the year contenders or like surefire purchases. But because things are so stacked, I'm like, I might not actually be able to have time for this game that I've been hyped for so long, right? So on the one hand, on the gaming, actual like enjoying game wise, even though I don't think graphical fidelity and technology wise things have improved much, but it's fine. At the end of the day, it's about the fun factor, right? But on the other side of the spectrum, as someone who has always been about console tech pushing things forward, about leaving cross-gen behind, about physical games, I buy primarily physical. All of that stuff is kind of being left behind. So the things that were key tenets of mine throughout since I was young, they are being sidelined, but the quality of the games is still there. So I'm kind of in between two worlds at the moment. And obviously the price has gone crazy as well. So It is what it is.
I'm trying to read Corey. Corey Mess's cross-generational argument is a gross misunderstanding of hardware and development, born from console players who have come to grips with the fact that continued use x86 kills the idea of, I don't know what he's, I guess
I
he's
mean, and
maybe
that's just
writing.
wrong, as the Series S proves. x86 isn't this magic bullet. Like, it's an architectural system, but you're still beholden to the components that use that architecture. I don't think people realize that. Like, it doesn't matter just as x86. It's still, how much RAM does it have? What's the CPU performance? Like, all these things. What's the bandwidth of the RAM? Like, you're still beholden to those things. You know, they don't magically erode just because it's x86. I think a lot of PC gamers, they don't really realize that because they have never been the primary focus. With PC games, it's always just different sayings, right? Like, it's fundamentally a console game. I mean, I know it's developed on PC, but their primary optimization focus is usually console, and then PCs, because there's so many variables, it's just a bunch of different sayings, right? And it's not like on console where you have to have a set standard of performance. Like, this game to be, to be certified needs to match this level of performance and can't have this, drop below this and have this number of crashes, etc. You don't really have that on PC. If it runs shit on PC, just drop your settings and just keep dropping them lower until you get reasonable performance, basically. You can't really do that on console. It wouldn't really fly in the same way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and my only point is, like, even with cross-generational support, Corey, like, you could scale, right? Because we see this on PC.
Yeah.
Right. You can scale the resolution, textures, frame rates, effects, things like that. I mean, obviously Sony has their own what is it? What the heck is it called? Pisser?
API, yeah. They use a custom proprietary API, yeah.
Yeah, they use Pisser. Was that code? Was that something they developed in with AMD? I don't remember.
AMD. I think that I don't think that is part of Project Amethyst. I think that's something they developed beforehand. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing, actually. It's an interesting point because PlayStation actually uses its own proprietary API. On the PS5, it's AGC, AGCX, and on the PS4, it was GNME, GNMX. And that's actually a completely different API to DirectX. With its own low-level access and its own feature sets and everything, which are not publicly advertised. We actually don't know what the core features of PlayStation's proprietary API is. All we know is from Digital Foundry and NX Gamer and stuff, speaking to developers. They've done a few videos on this. Developers themselves say both the API and the shader language is faster and easier to use than what's it called, Xbox's GDK or whatever, and DirectX.
Yeah. Nib, I would encourage you, if you can, get a PC. Get a PC.
Yeah,
it is.
You say that, but then
it's the flexibility. That's the look. I love, again, I have a 5080, right? So I'm able to play games kind of just, I mean, really without. I mean, I haven't played a game, and I have had my computer, my new build since I think March of this year. So I haven't played anything that's really pushed its limits.
Have you played Tokon Fighting Souls, Halo Infinite, and Modern Warfare 4 beta on your PC?
I haven't played the Modern Warfare beta yet. I didn't play. I had Halo Infinite, and I played it on my 3070. And I played it at 144 frames. I think at like high settings.
Okay, and it ran okay, yeah.
Yeah, it ran okay. Oddly enough, the Xbox, the version that was on the Xbox storefront or on Game Pass actually would crash. So I had to use the Steam version of Halo Infinite multiplayer, and that didn't have any issues in terms of crashing, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, that is interesting. Yeah. No, because the reason I say is because I know Marvel Tokon had issues on PC. It's like that's why the reviews are so negative.
Oh yeah, on PC it's not.
Yeah, but I was reading through the reviews of Halo Infinite on Steam, and even there were so many complaints about issues and crashes. And then most recently, Modern Warfare 4 beta. I'm hearing there's articles on about how even on a 5090 it can run at like 40 frames per second, and that kind of stuff just maddens me, because if I spent 2, 3, 4,000 pounds, like I'm one of those people who the more I spend on something, the less issues I want from it.
You don't want to have to tinker.
Exactly. It's especially
no, I get it. And you're gonna have to tinker
a
little bit, Nib. If you own a PC, you will have to tinker a little bit.
Nah, I'm not. I don't want to do that anymore, dude.
It's not plug and play like console. It's got, like, in my opinion, I think it's gotten better. Like, obviously, if you have an NVIDIA GPU, there's the NVIDIA app, and then you can there actually will give you NVIDIA will actually give you optimized settings for a specific game, and then you can scale,
I hear that, right? Yeah. I totally am there with you, but then when I watch like Alex Battaglia's videos on Digital Foundry, oftentimes his optimized or preferred settings are not in line with NVIDIA's. And that makes me think like the AI system or whatever they use that runs through what would be best is not really as granularly detailed as a human would be. Because obviously Alex, like, he'll go through every setting of shadow, right? And he'll say, okay, how much visual difference can I see in these shadow between ultra and high? And what's the frame rate difference, right? And he'll individually go through each one and say, okay, high shadows or ultra shadows aren't worth it, because for a 2 frames per second drop, it's a basically non-discernible difference in actual visuals. He'll be like, go with medium shadows. But I don't think an AI is clever enough to do that. And that's why I feel like even if those kind of features still exist, the compulsive nature of me and being detail oriented, I will always still end up tinkering, because I just won't trust that a machine can do it. Just in the same way now, I don't really like using AI, even though everyone thinks I use AI. I personally believe AI is quite stupid. At least in the way it collates information. Like it's a very subsurface level of data collation. At least like with some of them. Obviously, some of them are better than others.
If
like
you're using
AI,
if you're using AI, you always need to check the output. You have
to. Crazy, yeah. These days, the things it scours is like YouTube channels and influencers and articles from media who are really bad at sourcing, and that's not good enough. That's like, this is really rudimentary sourcing, and you cannot lean on that.
Yeah, no. There's a big push for the use of AI for the company I work for. Like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like literally we use Copilot, we use Gemini.
Yeah.
And so I know there's other AI applications depending on whatever business unit you fall into. At my company, there's different AI platforms, but it's really being pushed, Nib. But one of the things, to your point, one of the things they talk about is always check the output. Like that human piece, right, is so important to check the work.
I mean, I've used it with some of my work, and I'll be honest, sometimes it is useful. But sometimes, like, you think it's useful. Like, for example, like me and my friend, we were setting up this company, right? I won't go into the product details, but we needed like factories that would be able to manufacture this thing that we wanted, right? So we put it into ChatGPT or whatever. Well, he did. He's got a ChatGPT account. And, it gave us all this information that we wanted. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. It's made our job so easy because it's found all these factories. But when it came down to ringing these factories, one was like liquidated. Another one, just because the website advertises it was literally just a front. Like it was a shitty little office somewhere out in the sticks. And even though they advertise they do all these amazing things, they were basically just a middleman. And they just contacted another factory that would produce it, and they would take their cut, which obviously would not work for us. We want direct from wholesale. So like when we went through this list of like 8, 9 manufacturers and vendors, in the end, I think like only 1 or 2 was actually of use. So it's one of those things where, it seemed good on paper, but then it actually ended up giving us more work. If we just researched it ourselves and rang each one, it probably would have saved us time. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like that. It goes back to checking the work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
something, yeah. And I've learned too, like the prompts influence how good an AI response is too, right? So
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah.
that's been kind of part of some of the training that we've had at work. I had to travel to Florida
Mhm.
for work because we had some AI training is one of the things they talked
Right,
about,
right,
like
right.
the quality of prompts, right? So but yeah, no, I mean like it can, to your point, like it could spit out some of those things. Where I've had success using AI is just helping me prepare for meetings
Hmm.
and providing different scenarios like, okay, what
Yeah,
if they ask this question, like,
yeah,
what kind of questions might somebody at a higher level within the
yeah.
organization ask me, right? Like a CFO. So,
I, I'll tell you what it's quite good with. Like one of my friends, again, it wasn't me using it, but
yeah, yeah.
I think he got like a parking ticket or something, and he
Yeah,
was like contending it, and he put it into Chat GPT, and he was like,
yeah.
"Look, I'm not happy with this because of these reasons. Can you write me like a legal form letter that could get me out of it?" And it like boom, it like had all these frigging rules and stipulations that and this thing wasn't printed properly, and blah blah blah. This timing, they didn't wait long enough to give all this other nonsense, and he messaged it to them to appeal his parking ticket or whatever. And I guess the person just looked at this frigging long ass message with all this detail, and they just said, "All right, we've let you off. Like, don't worry about it."
Oh my
So it
gosh, that's too
actually,
funny.
it actually got him out of this. Yeah, did find that funny.
That is too funny. Um, all right, I want to move on to Herman Holst here.
Hmm.
Um, because I had look, so there we this week we found out that the PlayStation is getting rid of the live service component of Horizon. Was it Horizon Hunters? They're reworking
Yeah,
Horizon Hunters Gathering.
correct. Yeah,
So basically, to like a smaller story-led co-op game, right? After what was described as poor player playtest feedback,
correct. Yeah.
and this game has a December milestone.
Hmm.
So again, that has sparked the conversation around Sony's. Remember, it started off as 12 live service games.
Yeah.
That was the original ambition. Not it wasn't just to simply publish on an occasional multiplayer game, here or there, right? It was really to manufacture a really a reoccurring revenue pillar
Mm,
alongside PlayStation's premium single player business,
mm,
the goaties as people call them.
mm.
Um, but there's been some setbacks here, right?
Some.
There's been
Yeah.
some visible setbacks. I kind of made this argument. I say, look, like across the portfolio in terms of live service games, it hasn't been a failure, 100% failure, because we do have Helldivers 2, right? That became a major commercial cultural hit. It's kind of interesting. They made a Helldivers tweet announcement. I think after maybe the day after the news of Guerrilla rescoping the Horizon Hunters Gathering. Did you play the Hunters Gathering? I didn't have any interest. Just it looked like my kind of
I
game,
did
but
not actually. I did
okay.
not play it. I'll be honest. I wasn't really. I mean, give it a go, but I just the art style and everything. I guess I was being a Karen, but it like given how amazing Horizon looks and the engine, the Decima engine and everything, it just felt like why are they doing this kind of cartoony art style? And I do like those kind of games. Like I love what's it called, fucking Hades and all, a lot of these kind of visual games, but just not what I want from a Horizon game because I know how good it can look. So it kind of put me off. And then like the character designs and art direction, yeah, I wasn't too interested, to be honest. But yeah, I guess the play test confirmed it because yeah, they weren't positive. But
Yeah.
no, I did not play it. I was butthurt about it not being like a co-op version of the Horizon game.
Now again, this hasn't been officially confirmed by Sony. This is just some reporting, I think, for Jason Schreier.
Hmm.
Actually, yes, from Jason Schreier that Guerrilla's reworking Horizon Hunters Gathering. again, to a smaller story-led co-op game. Um, but yeah, I mean, they've had like we talked about, Helldivers 2. Um, they've had some legacy reoccurring games that are, live service. I call them live service ish, like MLB The Show. Gran Turismo 7 did have some, live service elements to it.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, but in terms of like the newer live service push, and I think about the 12 games,
Hmm.
there were some. The Last of Us Online was canceled. Concord release was shut down in a few weeks. Firewall closed. The live service projects at Ben Studios and Blue Point canceled. Blue Point closed. Bungie, we know about the challenges of Bungie. I think Bungie's, unless I
We
think it
had
turns around, I don't
multiple
think
games
Bungie's going to be looked
cancelled.
at as
So
a,
we knew
yeah.
before Payback was cancelled, but now Jason Schreier has confirmed that they actually had 6 or 7 projects, and
Mhm,
I think only 2 of them actually released.
mhm,
So they had a number of cancellations. Yeah, we had Insomniac. We had the Great Web.
mhm. The Spider-Man game, yeah.
So there's been actually quite a number. I think the count now is probably 10. I think 10 cancellations, and then if Horizon doesn't meet its December like test or whatever, that would be yet another one. And some of these have had significant investment and time. Like it's not like just a couple of months work or a year or something. Like some of these are multi-year projects with probably in excess of 100 million invested into them, especially like Last of Us Factions. It had, the majority of Naughty Dog working on it for multiple years. Concord was a multi-year project. I know they're not as big a studio, but even Horizon will have had at least a few hundred people working on it for several years. So yeah, these are costly investments and mistakes. And before I didn't care so much because it's like, okay, when you get a new studio that's never made a live service game, or you invest into something completely new that's not going to encroach on your current tentpole library, I don't mind so much because you can throw money at it if it sticks of it. But when it starts eroding into the first party traditional releases, like with Bend, with Blue Point, with Naughty Dog, with Guerrilla Games, then it does actually piss me off, like genuinely, because even Jason Schreier said if Naughty Dog hadn't done Last of Us Online, he reckons that Intergalactic probably would have come out like 2 years ago, right? And it's going to be a similar thing. You got half of the studio working on Horizon Hunters Gathering. Well, it's like what is it, like 500 people or something, 450? That's half of that studio could have been working on the next single player tempo game instead. Blue Point, if they weren't working on the God of War live service, maybe they would have been working on an amazing looking single player game or another remake or something. So we have actually lost out now because of this live service push, which is what irritates me from a gamer and consumer perspective.
Well, it's interesting because some of those studios that, have, didn't have chops in terms of chops in making, live service games, right? Like
Correct. Yeah.
Bend and Blue Point. I mean,
Correct.
they were essentially, I mean, that's kind of where the funding's at, right? So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
like Sony's got this initiative. We know Ben pitched, or maybe it was John Garvin who pitched the Last of Us 2, not Last of Us, I'm
Mm.
sorry. The hell's the game that Ben put out, the last game they put out?
Days Gone.
Days Gone, and that
Yeah.
was pitched. That was actually canceled by Sony. Said no. So here's
Mm.
Ben's studio. Like, what we need to find a project. We need funding, and Sony's like, okay, well, we got this initiative. I think that's
Yeah.
part of it too. Like Ben's like, okay, we need to keep the lights on, right? We need to
Yeah.
be relevant to Sony. So they take on this new initiative. Then that gets canceled. Um, so it's yeah, no, I certainly understand the frustration of especially fans, right? Where it's like, okay, you know these uh these studios, right? These big
Mm.
studios, first party studios that have had a history of putting out really good, solid first party games. There's kind of wasted opportunity costs here because they spent so
Mhm.
much time in developing games that ultimately got canceled.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
so so I understand that, and I would agree. Um, and at the beginning too, I think I was like you, or I feel like, oh, it doesn't really impact the release of their premier, tentpole titles. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, and I was like, oh, and Sony can walk and chew gum at the same time. But I
Mhm.
do think that the original initiative has substantially underperformed. Like,
100%, yeah.
yeah, like
But
I don't disagree with that. Like this thing has underperformed big. I
that's one
think
of the
this is like the one
reasons
black eye for PlayStation this
no, I,
generation.
I
Yeah, I'm sorry,
agree.
go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say it's one of the reasons. So, Herman Holst, he was made head of studios in 2019, right? So when I criticize Herman Holst, I'm not talking about like just now. I'm talking about all initiatives from 2019 onwards. Now I get it. Probably Jim Ryan was a key proponent of the live service push, because I know some people will say, "Oh, but Concord was greenlit originally by Shuhei Shuhida." Fine, yeah. Um, but the thing is, he obviously was fired by Jim Ryan, according to him. Right? They clashed, and I kind of get the feeling that he had to, kind of green light some live service projects because that's what Jim Ryan was interested in. But he probably didn't like green lighting too many of them, so for whatever reason they fell out. That's obviously me just assuming, but reading between the lines, that's kind of the implication I got. So Shuhei's out of the picture, and Herman Holst comes in 2019. Now I get it. Your boss is telling you you've got this live service initiative you need to pursue, but the thing is, and the reason I put a lot of the blame on him, is part of head of studios and management is curating who is good for what and why. And when you have like studios like Bluepoint, for example, right? Bluepoint, they've never actually made an original like single player game. They predominantly, well, I don't know if never, but they predominantly work on remakes and remasters, right? So just putting them on a unique or original single player game is already a massive task that they may not even rise to. But not only do you not put them on a single player original game, you put them on a live service project. And it's not just a live service project, it's a live service project of one of your primary and tentpole IP, God of War. And to me, that is just abysmal management, right? Like, let them walk before they can run. And similar with Bend, right? I get it. They're probably saying, yeah, we can do it. We're so up for this. Like, we've got these amazing ideas. But sometimes you just gotta, you've got to actually do, rather than just go with the bluster, you've got to use your own initiative. Again, Bend, Days Gone wasn't that well received, right? Like, let them find their footing. Let them do another single player game so they can polish
I
up
actually
and
really like
improve.
Days Gone.
You didn't?
No, I did.
Oh, I did it. Okay, okay, yeah. I thought it was okay.
I thought it was very underrated. Like when I read the reviews and I actually played it, I'm like, wait a minute, like this actually is a pretty good game. Now it was a little long in the tooth, but
Yeah, I found it
that
a
was
bit
my only
repetitive.
complaint.
But yeah, point is, right, let them find their footing on that,
Mhm.
on the single player side of things. Instead, what you throw them into the deep end again with a live service game, which even premier studios that have a history of live service, even they're failing at live service, and you give it to these kind of studios. To me, that is just really, really bad management. And that's why I just think Herman Holst, like, he doesn't have his eye on the pulse for neither management nor quality assessment. These things went on way too long for you to know so late in the game that it's not going to work out, especially when normal consumers like could see it from a mile away, with certain games. We're even say with Concord or with friggin' what's it called it, the Payload or whatever the new game is, Payback, or I don't know. But there's certain games like you could see the public draw just wasn't there, and they still went ahead. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point about protecting studio fit, right? Like, like keep those studios working on things that they have had experience and know how to do, right?
Yeah,
Like a Naughty Dog. I mean, not that Naughty
mm,
Dog's never made a multiplayer game they have, or but
yeah,
maybe Bend or Blue Point, which I thought was kind of interesting. Blue Point was working on a live service game to begin with anyway.
yeah.
um, but you talked about maybe Herman Hulse not being the right guy to oversee this. Do you think, Nib, that maybe they should have hired someone who had, because we all thought that Bungie was the overseer of well,
Live service,
the live service, like they would come in and
but
evaluate these
which in
projects,
itself,
but
which in itself is like kind of a bad call, because don't get me wrong, Bungie has made some incredible games,
Sure.
but with Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, it's been very inconsistent, right? It's
Mhm.
always been inconsistent. Like one expansion is great, one update is great, then another update is really bad. The public are really, so I get like they've managed to hold people's interest with Destiny 2 for a while, but it hasn't been smooth sailing. Like you can't say they're like impervious to mistakes or, so the fact that they put so much faith into Bungie as well to be like the curator of this initiative is in itself, I think, a really bad call. Because they weren't that. They don't have that, impervious pedigree that, for me to say, yeah, that they're definitely the ones to oversee all of this or make the right calls.
Yeah, and then I wonder if maybe they should have brought in someone else to oversee the live service initiative, not a Herman Hulst. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
agree.
who they could bring in, but maybe bring in someone who's got some expertise. Again, we thought that Bungie was Bungie, they have their own issues, right?
Yeah. They had their own
Uh,
issues. Yeah.
but do their I guess my question is, like, Bungie's portfolio review of the live service initiative, did it improve quality control? I don't know. Maybe. Um, or did Sony overvalue Bungie's expertise here?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
You know? Um,
Um, Yeah,
like
I think so. And you were saying about Jim Herman Holst, right?
mhm.
Don't get me wrong. Like, if they were like promoting him to like head of technology or something, great. But the thing with even when I look at Herman Holst and the stewardship of Guerrilla Games under him, as much as I adore some of Guerrilla Games games, in going back from the very beginning, they still make mistakes in between hits. Like I don't think what's it called? Viet something Nam Nam 67. I forgot this is the
Mhm.
first game ever from them that I played. Awful.
Not a good game.
Killzone 1, I wasn't a fan of Killzone 1. I actually thought it was a bad game. I know some
You mean
people enjoy it.
that was the Halo killer?
Well, yeah, so much.
That's what it was called at the time. It
Yeah,
was
I
like the
know.
Halo.
I
I was
know the
like,
media
"Nah."
called it that,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But
yeah.
Killzone 2 was good, though.
Killzone 2 was incredible. It's actually one of
Yeah.
my favorite FPS. Killzone 3 was very good. I thought Shadow 4 was a bit mediocre. And then Zero Dawn was great. But like what I mean is that like that sort of lineup of games. I think Forbidden West was after he'd already was part of head of first party studios, not at Guerrilla Games anymore. So I won't put that one down to him. But the point is, like in between great games, there's some mediocre or bad games. So you could tell like his eye for quality or assessment, it's not ironclad. Like there is, like you can tell that there's room for improvement there. So it's not that surprising to me that this same inconsistency is also carried through to first party studios now, with him overseeing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like, as I think about I look back at the live service initiative, right, the 12 games.
Mm.
I look at that and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I kinda blame Sony for approving them in the first place." But then I also give them credit for canceling weak projects before they launch. After we, after I think maybe some of those cancellations happened after the Concord thing.
Mm.
But I mean, they have kind of reevaluated the live service strategy and just said, "Okay, like, you know what? Like, this isn't it."
They
I
have,
mean,
but some of them are
do do
still
do do we give them
too long
credit
in
for
the
that,
tooth.
or is it Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean I get what you're saying, but how long has Horizon Gathering, Hunter's Gathering been in development? Like I think
Mhm.
3-4 years, right? How
Yeah.
long has Payback or whatever it's called with the dollar sign? I forgot what the name is. How long has that been in development? Like yes, they are doing some reactive closures and cancellations, but it's either not enough too late in the game, or they are not remedying the issue. Like you cancel Blue Point's you know, you cancel their live service game and you don't put them on another single player game. You just close the studio. And that to me is like, I get it. Like maybe they didn't have the faith or whatever, or it's too costly, but you never really gave them a chance. And they're such a talented studio. Sometimes even Herman Hulst's own bloody studio, Guerrilla Games, took time to find its footing, with Vietnam 67 and Killzone 1 before Killzone 2. but you don't want to give that same opportunity to Bluepoint, who are only 70 people. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't know, man. It just seems ridiculous to me. Like, they threw them in the deep end. Like, they put a chef who makes main courses on fucking desserts with no training, and then when he failed at making souffle, they fired his ass. But it's like, why did you put that chef on that dish to begin with? It's your fault.
Yeah, I think the other challenge they face too is chasing what I've called a saturated PvP market, head
Yeah,
on, right? Because I
yeah.
mean, you have these evergreen games. Like, how do you compete with that? Like, how do you pull people off of Fortnite, Call of Duty, Valorant? Like that almost seems like at least in my opinion, just a battle you won't win.
The thing
I
is,
mean, yeah,
though, we do still see successes in between, right? Like Marvel Rivals is a fairly new game, and that was a great success. Arc Raiders is a fairly new game, great success. Helldivers 2, fairly new game, great success. I think like what it is, and again, I could be very wrong, but rather than trying to chase the trend, I think consumers gravitate more towards something different and original. And I get it. Like Arc Raiders, there's Escape from Tarkov, but that's very enthusiast core, very
hey, Nib,
hard.
can I interrupt real quick? Because
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah.
just said something kind of jogged my memory here. Logic and I were having a conversation a couple of days ago. I think it was an article. I have to go back and pull it up. It's an article about something. This was Game Industry Biz. There's a research firm
Hmm.
that basically said like games. I'm paraphrasing here. Something to the effect that
Hmm.
like the games that are successful are the ones that have identified their target audience and designed that game around that audience, right? And sometimes I feel like with some of the live service stuff, like especially Concord, I'm like, who's this for? I
Exactly.
get the hero shoot audience, okay, but is it unique enough to capture
Exactly.
that audience? Maybe not.
No.
And maybe that's what's been missing here. I
Yeah.
also
Like
think
they
like
need to stop going for quote unquote hero shooter audience and just make something original and new that has its own catch and draw, right? Um, and yeah, like Marvel's has its own Marvel Rivals thing, obviously with the superheroes and stuff, and Arc Raiders, that PVE kind of, that style of Tarkov thing. It's a very fresh. Helldivers 2, that kind of horde, but on a mass scale, and with all the fucking different bombs and stuff from your spaceship. Like it felt. I know it's based off like Helldivers 1, but in the 3D space, it felt really fresh. To the point now where even like Gears of War is kind of copying it, really. Like their new horde mode is essentially like a Helldivers 2 version of Gears of War, with the bigger scale and the objectives and everything like that. So like those three games had their own unique identities. And it's like if you wanted a game like that, you didn't really have something else to go to instead. And hence, I think they succeeded. Whereas these other games, they don't have enough of a identity and unique selling point of their own to kind of rise above the sea of options.
yeah. Yeah, like I said earlier, like this has been the one black eye, I think, for PlayStation this generation.
Mm.
So let me ask you a question. So why do you
Mhm.
think he needs to go now?
Herman House, me personally.
Yes. Yeah.
So multiple reasons. One, I think his eye for foreseeing quality, sort of like, I mean, ahead of time, because like one of the things I think that's put PlayStation in the successful point it is being able to recognize quality partnerships, games, investments, and so forth beforehand. This idea sounds amazing. I can see this is going to be a very high quality product. And I think he doesn't actually have the consistency of that eye with overseeing projects. Two, I think his micromanagement of talent is off key. And I think he's been saved a little bit by the pre existing talent of PlayStation Studios. So, because an Insomniac is so talented, because Santa Monica is so talented, and all these other studios that have already released games, they've kind of saved his bacon, right? These established studios.
Yeah.
Whereas with these other newer projects and new studios and things like that, they've catastrophically failed. So his micromanaging in putting where you should apply talent to what project and how and what kind of IP, and is the IP looking good, or why should we invest in it, and all of this, I think it's off key. So there was a bunch of other reasons I can't remember off the top of my head, but I genuinely, truly just do think he's not the right fit for this. I'm sure he's okay. I'm not saying he's a complete disaster. He has his wins as well. Obviously, the single player output does have a lot of gems in there still. You know, we do have our God of War Ragnarok. So, you know,
and that's
But again, I don't think he's really. I think that's the talent of the studios, and I do think Insomniac has kind of carried PlayStation this generation as well.
They are arguably the best, PlayStation acquisition to date.
They are 100%.
I mean, and I say that not just because of the quality of games that they put out, but also Sony acquired them for like 250 million. Was it 250?
237, I think. 230 or 230 something million.
I mean, geez, talk about an ROI, right? Knocking it out
I know,
of the park.
right?
I mean, like, geez, like, I mean, yeah, I've gone back and forth with, because I've seen the conversation. I've listened to podcasts that have talked about firing Herman Hulst. I've gone back and forth with this. I don't know if firing him, because to your point, and maybe some of that's due to the talented studios, but just the broader portfolio, the broader business, PlayStation business is been very healthy. Right?
I do agree, but I also think a lot of that, one, the talent that already exists in the studios, and two, it's the third party games, the third party revenue, right? Once your competition falters so badly, like Xbox has, right, and you become the de facto platform for third party games, that's basically what's carrying their revenue right now, because they are the lion's share, that 30% cut of all these big games like, Fortnite, Roblox, Call of Duty, or whatever, GTA 5, etc. And that has, again, saved their bacon, right? If there was an Xbox that had been firing on all cylinders and had multitude of, game of the year banger hits, it could have been a very different story, especially considering there was such stock shortages at the start of this gen. Really, like, Xbox had a layup this generation. This was the generation that they could have eroded PlayStation's market share, but they just did so badly that even despite PlayStation's own failures, they still came out looking like, a knight in shining armor in terms of quality and stuff, even though it hasn't actually been a great generation for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could certainly see both sides of the argument. I just go back to kind of just again, and I understand, like, he's there, and I probably put a little more responsibility on Jim Ryan for the live service stuff, but yeah, Hulse is there, right? Like I said, the live service mandate began under Jim Ryan. It was their corporate strategy. But then I kind of go back with, but the wider PlayStation business has remained healthy. I think, PlayStation's talked about the PS5 generation being its most profitable.
Correct.
And they've had those. They still have had. They've delivered those critically acclaimed commercial first party releases, right?
They have. I mean, if you look at like the top 10 best selling PS5 games of all time, right? So the top 10 best selling PS5 games per Circana of all time. Spider-Man, this is not bundles included, by the way, so the actual sales number is significantly higher. Number 2 best-selling PS5 game of all time out of 4,737 games, PS5 games, is Spider-Man 2. The number 7 best-selling game of all time is God of War Ragnarok. The number 8 best-selling game of all time on PS5 is Miles Morales. So they do still have these kind of hits that are essentially selling PS5s, right? Because you don't need many. I think that's the misconception people have about the importance of exclusives. It's not that every exclusive has to sell well. In fact, only if 1 or 2 exclusives are appealing to the casual zeitgeist, that's enough to sell a PS5. So like Spider-Man 2 being the number 2 best-selling game of all time, of PS5 of all time, that means that was a system seller, right? And even if someone they think, okay, I want to play Call of Duty and Fortnite, but it's available on these platforms, why do I pick this platform over the other platform? Oh, it has Spider-Man 2. Okay, I'll buy that platform to play Call of Duty, but at least I have Spider-Man 2. So those games have still carried the platform, but they can't be complacent because the fatigue could kick in for the Spider-Man 3, or their competition could come up with great games for the next generation. Like, you can't sit on your laurels with those things.
So let me ask something, Nib, because I follow this is kind of where my thoughts on Herman Hall. It's like I don't disagree. Badly managed parts of PlayStation's live service expansion. I don't disagree with that. But he hasn't damaged the overall PlayStation business either. So
I think it's a bit early to say that. Let's wait for next gen.
So I guess my question,
yeah,
I was to say, I guess my question to you is if he had really hurt the business, I would imagine PlayStation would be like, look, Herman, you got to go, right? Like Sony doesn't strike me as a company that's going to, and again, you look back at the governance over the live service initiative, where it's like, okay, you know what, guys, we're not doing this anymore. Bungie, get your shit together, right? Bungie, now we're going to get our hands on you. Like Sony's not to compare, this isn't, I'm not trying to just, PlayStation versus Xbox thing, but on the contrary, we see what happens on the Xbox side of things, right?
Yeah.
Where there's not that level of governance accountability that we see at Sony. So I guess my only point is that given Sony's behavior to cut ties or to intervene, right? Like, what do we believe in? That's if Sony really felt that Herman Hulst is doing a bad job, they'd say, you know what, Herman, it's time to go.
So I think ultimately it boils down to the bottom line, because the thing is, it could just be seen as collateral, right? Okay, we've had failures, but as long as we get that one hit or we get that Helldivers 2, they might think it's worth it. And the other thing is, like you said, the business is still healthy. And even, what's his name? Who he designed the PS3? I forgot his name.
Kaz?
Yeah, not even Kaz Hirai. It was before him.
I don't remember
the main technician. I don't know. Anyway, he was not fired until after the launch of the PS3, and things were dire. Once the financials took a hit, that's when they stepped in. It's almost like they give you the opportunity to make those mistakes first, for it to filter into the bottom line, and then they'll cut you. And I think right now, Herman Hulst is still sitting pretty, because people are already locked into this gen. Like, I may not be happy with some of the decisions, consumers may not be happy, but 95 million people already own a PS5. It's too late to start being like, I'm not buying PlayStation games anymore. You already bought your console, so of course you're going to buy the consoles, the games, etc. I think next gen is where we'll see whether these things have had an impact, or what the competition can or cannot take away from PlayStation, because each gen is almost not a full reset, but it's kind of an opportunity for market share to be diverted again. And I think we're too late into this gen for that to take place right now. We'll see what next gen holds. But I think because Xbox is going to have a really expensive Helix, and they're kind of almost like a multi-platform publisher right now, I don't think it's going to really have much impact on PlayStation, really, because they're kind of sitting pretty right now in terms of the lack of competition.
So do you think, one last question, do you think that Sony should have been in their live service initiative?
Not completely, no. I just think it should be reduced in investment. It should have much more airtight, checks and balances for the level of quality, the originality of the games that are being produced. And also, it should not be interfering with your bread and butter single player tentpole games. If you have to grow a studio in order to have a live service spin-off of that studio, or an additional third studio or second studio or whatever, fine, that's one thing, but do not take away from what already exists.
Yeah, I don't think you can force a studio that's that's known for their single player games, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
To become like a permanent live service studio. Unless unless they say we actually want this, right? And they want that transformation. But no, I don't think you should kind of shoehorn
it in. Yeah.
Shoehorn it in. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think you need to have this like large like portfolio quota of like 12, 15 live service games. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they. Yesterday, I was like, maybe they should abandon this because it's just a tough nut to crack, live service. But now, after kind of thinking about it more last night, and I do agree with you. Maybe not. Maybe just reduce the investment, but maybe still try to make some live service games.
At the end of the day, like it's about portfolio diversity, right? Like you can't not have multiplayer at all. And if, at the end of the day, Xbox, I don't know, just say they did start doing more exclusives again, and they did have that next big exclusive multiplayer game, like you always want to have something in your chamber, locked and loaded, just in case that is an inevitability. Or maybe there comes a time where, finally Fortnite or whatever, Call of Duty, which is kind of actually already happening, especially with Call of Duty, where the decline, the stagnation starts, right? And now you have this pool of consumers, live service consumers, that are open to going to something else. Well, you don't want to miss the boat and not have anything out there at all that might be able to scoop some of them up, but you just don't want to make that such a focus that it impedes on the things that are being successful for you. And remember, like the thing with a live service, we'd always talk about the competitive nature of games, right? And vying for each other. Well, live service is way more cutthroat than single player, because at least with a single player game, okay, I can be done with this game in a week or two, put it aside and play the next single player game. So the turnaround is much greater. With a live service game, some people are playing the one live service game for months or years. So it's like much harder to pull people away, especially if they have microtransactions and investments and things like that. Much harder to pull them away to other live service games in the same frequency that you can single player. So they can have multiple successful single player games, but to have multiple live service games, I think, is going to be a considerably harder nut to crack.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the stuff here in the chat.
Yeah.
I did. You mentioned exclusivity with Xbox. It's kind of been a back and forth I've been having with people on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that it's a return to console exclusivity the way people think it is.
Yeah.
I
agree. The thing is, right, I would let Nib run. Sometimes you wish, like, I'm happy with where I am in life and the work and career and stuff I have, even though I do think I basically just chose it because it pays me the most. But at one point I did actually get offered a job by EA, and my job would have been to go around overseeing different projects and deciding what gets investment and what doesn't. And I remember I actually knew someone at PlayStation as well. I used to speak with them frequently. And it's weird that is not the direction I went. but had I gone in that direction, maybe I actually would have been one of the people you guys would be screaming at.
Actually, I actually interviewed at Bethesda.
Oh, nice.
And almost went to work there. Glad I didn't now. But I actually kept in contact with quite a few folks there at Bethesda. So yeah, it's kind of it's another conversation what's going on there internally.
Yeah.
But no, I just think it's the conversation around exclusivity is kind of interesting with Xbox because I've it's interesting how and someone should actually do some kind of sociological study on the Xbox fan base and how they have gone from exclusives are antiquated. You need to get your games everywhere to multiplat killed Xbox. What? So and actually my argument's always been that, well, the hardware was in decline even when they had exclusives, so it wasn't I understand people try to make that correlation to the multi-plat strategy further declining hardware, but I think that was happening anyway.
Yeah.
And it actually was happening. We saw that in the financials that the hardware was a decline. But my argument, Nib, the exclusivity front with Xbox with some other people on Twitter is that look, like if they were bringing exclusivity back, why have they only committed to 2 exclusives? One in
Yeah, no,
2026
100%, yeah.
and one in 2027. If you believe Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be exclusive, Asha Sharma was at Bethesda, saw the game, said it was great. Why would she take that opportunity to say, and this is a game that's going to define the future of Xbox as an exclusive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm just,
No,
yeah.
I think these I've said before, I think like Gears of War E-Day is an established IP, tentpole IP with a history. Clockwork Revolution is a new IP, something that's fresh. And they're kind of two perfect test subjects to test whether the exclusivity thing works, is financially viable. Because on the one hand, you've got something that already had its teeth and history with Xbox as a brand. And on the other hand, you have something new and fresh. So if they can't succeed, sales wise and market penetration wise, then the exclusivity thing is gonna, it's gonna crumble. But the only thing I would say is, and we always talk about business and stuff, and we always have our own ideas. But I'll be truthful, hand on heart. If I was the executive, if I was CEO of Xbox right now, man, what a fucking task and a half. I don't even know how you crawl your way out of this, right? Because the thing is, no matter what they do, I think they're always going to be impaired by Game Pass sales cannibalization. I think so long as that is there, it doesn't really matter what you do or what you release. It's always going to encroach on your sales. And I know people use outlier examples like Forza Horizon 6 or whatever, like, oh, you can still sell. Yeah, you can, but it's extremely hard to have such a broad appeal that you kind of appeal outside of that, you know, 25, 30 million Game Pass core audience across PC and Xbox and bridge into that kind of casual market. It's very, very, very few games that can actually do that to kind of overcome the sales cannibalization on Game Pass. And I think that's always going to be a massive hurdle for every single one of their studios now.
Yeah,
Someone
and I'm
from
also, yeah.
no, I was going to say someone from a bloody. They just said it the other day. The guy from id Software, right? He said Game Pass basically like Microsoft still doesn't understand the business model because they can't sell games the way they used to with Game Pass, but they're just not accounting for it properly.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember that interview, and
Yeah,
yeah, the other thing I said, I don't think people realize the 3% profit margin.
yeah,
Like, I don't think people really appreciate what that really means for the Xbox business.
I know.
Like, when you were facing economic headwinds, inflation, right? The cost of RAM, the
It's
rising
not
cost of
3%.
production.
You
Like,
know that, right? That 3% doesn't include hardware losses and other
oh, I
Azure
didn't.
and
Okay,
other things. Yeah. So,
so,
so I went into it in
yeah,
detail, like in one of my tweets, but basically there are some leaked documentation from the FTC case, which
mhm.
show that the way Xbox calculate accountability
Yeah, calculate,
margin
yeah,
is
yeah,
different, and it doesn't actually include all the costs that PlayStation and Nintendo do. And it's something both Phil Spencer and what's his name, the finance guy, I forgot his name. Anyway, I forgot his name. He
mm,
in deposition or whatever, both of them literally directly said, "Yes, our margin is calculated differently to
yeah,
PlayStation's, and actually their margin is significantly higher than what the numbers basically show." So that 3% is actually, it might even be a loss, honestly. So it's hard to say just from the way they calculate it.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well,
Mm.
even if it's, let's just take argument's sake, it's 3%, it's 3 cents of profit
Yeah,
really for every dollar revenue, and so that's a lot of pressure, right? They have very slim margins for any
extremely. Yeah,
any economic pressures to the business, right? Because now
yeah. So
there's no buffer. There's no
There's
buffer at
no
all.
buffer. Can I
Yeah.
put my okay? Look, I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen. This is just my fear about everything I'm seeing on the table. And so, what I actually think could be going on with Xbox right now is that they are essentially about to divest their entire business, as in the gaming business, right? And especially if they cannot turn things around. And there are numerous things about the way they've spoken, the moves they're making. Was I don't know if you heard, they're not reporting digital sales to Sakana and GSD and stuff anymore. They're talking about Call of Duty like, this IP is bigger than Marvel and all this other stuff, right? The language they're using, the data that they're omitting, and how they're omitting it, all of it kind of points to this notion that they are just prettying up these studios and publishers, etc., in order that they can find buyers for them, right? And on the digital sales side of things and the sales rankings and stuff, the reason you would admit that, one of the reasons you would admit that is that because if poor sales show up in sales charts and things, it's harder for you to have higher valuations or kind of do the pitch for selling this studio, right? Because if Hellblade 2 is nowhere to be seen in any chart, or Doom Eternal or what, Doom the Dark Ages drops off the face of the chart the very next month after it appears, it's harder for you to say like, oh, it's one of the most premier, IP that that has ever existed, because they can say, okay, well, the chart data is saying otherwise. And instead they can, in the absence of sales figures and data, they can kind of push other things like engagement and player numbers and spruce it up to make investors appeal in other ways. And I kind of feel like that this is their whole game now. They're selling studios one after the other, right? They're divesting them. We know, for example, Hellblade Senua, like they already intended to either shutter or sell the studio, and that was kind of an advertisement of the game for buyers, for other prospective buyers, right? It's almost like they're just selling, it's an advertisement for the studio. So yeah, when the way they're describing Call of Duty and how prominent an IP it is, that the language that Satya's using, it kind of sounds like language to appeal to investors. Not really someone who's deeply ingrained in the future of the gaming business. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah. Somebody wrote in the live chat, gets this last question here. Do you guys think that the live service push ended up being the reason why PlayStation isn't having any physical disc anymore in 2028? I would say no. I don't think that's why. I think the push to digital has to do with, what is it?
I have my own theories on that. You might disagree. Obviously, it's like
yeah.
So
I think it's because 80% of the market's buying digital now anyway. And
know,
also
man.
they talk about ARPU and increasing ARPU in the digital storefront.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's a move to essentially mitigate what's coming on the horizon. Because if you have if you know that your future console hardware, your next gen console, is going to be significantly higher priced, and your consoles already now are significantly higher priced, then probably the adoption rate of the next console is not going to be as fast as your previous consoles, right? If you have a slower adoption rate into the next gen, the only way you can mitigate that lack of growth in the user base, it is to increase your margins, right, elsewhere. So one of the ways to do that is if you cut out physical, you're making significantly higher margins on every game sold, even on third-party games. And then you cut out the manufacturing costs as well, which have gone up. And again, I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
I think it's short-sighted because there is still a huge audience with the physical. And actually, you can see, especially with single-player games, like what's his name? Christopher Dring. He put out some data, for Assassin's Creed, for Astrobot, and a few other recent games. And some of them actually have significant physical margin still. Actually, Astrobot was more physical than it was digital.
More physical in the EU, yeah. The other,
Yeah,
and I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying that data point's incorrect. But my only point to that is that the broader market trend does point to majority of consumers buying digital. EA's no longer, they'll no longer be sharing. Well, at least with Circana, they won't sharing their digital sales figures, but in their financials, they actually showed that roughly about 8 out of 10 consumers are buying these are full game purchases of their games
yeah.
digitally.
But the thing is, though, I of course that is true,
Yeah.
but then the context is important because the majority of what EA makes is live service games. The majority, and obviously consumers aren't going to be buying are not going to be as likely to buy disc versions of live service games because you don't want to be swapping out a disc every bloody time you play your FIFA or your, whatever, your Call of Duty, right? Like you want it on your hard drive, so no matter what game you have in your disk drive, you can always load it at an instant. So I think they will always skew massively digital, but I think it's a mistake to conflate that with the broader market or single player games. And obviously, yes, live service games encompass a huge number of the best-selling games, but intertwined between them are a lot of single-player games still. And I think those games will always have a much bigger physical consumer base. And I'll be really interested to see next gen if the digital margin compensates for the physical people that just won't buy games anymore.
So
Or will wait for
I'll
deep
say
sales.
this: they will model those scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And if they didn't think that if they thought that going all digital would lose them money
Mhm.
by alienating some of those folks who want consumer, they wouldn't be doing this.
No, of course,
Yeah,
of course that is right.
yeah.
But we know from the past that these models and projections can often be
Yeah.
misplaced, right?
No, and
So
yeah. Yeah, and the only part that I disagree here, I don't think it's going to. I don't think these projections are going to be incorrect. I just think that generally speaking, like Matt Piscatello's talked about it, right? The increase we've seen over the last couple of years, right? The increase of digital purchases to physical.
yeah.
And again, that's not to say that there aren't people out there that don't want physical. I still buy
Mhm,
physical. And I'll just use myself as an example. Like I
mhm.
have found myself that I've started gravitating toward the convenience of buying digitally, scoring through an app, right,
Yeah,
and just launching games. And I know Shuei said this, and I kind of chuckled when Shuei said this. I'm like, yeah, I don't like getting up, and it sounds so lazy.
yeah.
I don't like getting up and walking over swapping disc. Now, but
No,
there's also part of me that
yeah,
likes buying physical because I like to go to GameStop to trade in my games.
yeah.
you know, but I don't.
Can I say something
Yeah,
really
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah,
insulting?
yeah.
Sorry, Americans. It is no surprise to me that
Oh,
Americans are
come on,
among the
Nib,
laziest
Nib.
and the most. Because it's so funny because I didn't make the tweet because I didn't want to offend people, but
We like convenience.
the digital ratio to physical, it
Mhm.
kind of matched the laziness scale of charts around the world, and I was
Oh
like,
my
this is so
gosh. Do
funny. This is
do you
so
have this?
funny.
Is this is this actually like data that you have?
Yeah, so I went through it, and
Oh,
it's
you have to share
very
that
high
with me.
correlation. But all it is the reason I didn't post it is because the studies on laziness and stuff, I don't think the studies were broad enough for me to lean
Mhm.
on. So I didn't want to use it. But it was funny. It was literally like Canada and America obviously was like the laziest country. Unsurprisingly, you guys have.
Look, people have made a lot of money here in the US off selling convenience.
Convenience. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, this was kind of a conversation years ago on PC, right?
Yeah,
When the physical drive was removed and PC was going all digital. Um, and there was a lot, and
yeah,
there was
yeah,
some
yeah.
pushback there too. I remember that, but and
By
even
the way,
when
I'm lazy, just
yeah.
so everyone knows I'm lazy. Okay, so I'm not, I actually think sometimes like laziness
No,
is a
you're not
smart thing.
late, but you like convenience. Like there is like, and I think
But when we
if you
say
get
convenience, that's a polite way of saying I can't be bothered to get up and change my discs, right? Something that takes 5 seconds or 10
Nib,
seconds.
it's not just that too. Like it's not just for me. It's not the disc swap. It's not the
Yeah.
swapping of the disc. It's also taking time to go to GameStop, hoping that they still have copies of that
What
game
do
that
you
I
mean?
want.
No, you don't. You just go on Amazon or whatever other online website and order it.
Yeah, but then I have to wait for it to be delivered.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's just
So it's a mix of impatience and
it's FOMO. It's a mix of impatience. I don't have to wait
yeah,
for Amazon to deliver. I don't have to go to Walmart. And actually, it's interesting. Walmart's, at least my Walmart's the biggest retailer here in the U.S.
yeah.
Walmart here, my Walmart, ironically enough, the PlayStation and Xbox section of their of the gaming section there, the gaming
Mhm.
aisle, have the least amount of physical games. You know who has
Yeah.
got the most?
Yeah.
Nintendo.
Nintendo, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They're
And that
the
actually tracks with what Nintendo reports in terms of their
correct.
digital physical. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. What I'll say is, I think PlayStation's exclusives are going to be more important next generation than they have been in the like for a long time. And the reason is because if you drop physical games, right, suddenly like a big selling point for a large contingent of consumers, then there may not be many, maybe it's 25% or whatever. That's still a lot of people, right? And don't forget, it's not just 25%. The data is misleading because that 25% is who buys physical games, and then there's another bunch of people who buy used games, right? And who are part of this underbelly of data that's not part of the wider data set because they're buying and trading games, etc. So even though they buy consoles and they may buy the odd new game, a lot of the games that they buy and sell as whatever are used instead. They're not accounted for in the data. So now, if you take away physical, okay, where do these people go? Do they just buy digital instead? Do they just wait for sales instead? Or
So
do other platforms start becoming more incentivized? Because it's like, okay, these guys don't do physical anymore. And I used to be a physical gamer. Maybe I'll have a look on the PC side of things because Steam has a lot of sales and things, right? And they're digital as well, but there's more options. I can buy Steam codes or whatever from multiple different sites at much cheaper prices than on PSN. So maybe I might be interested in a PC gaming rig instead, and that's where the exclusive side of things comes into it because now they're not releasing their tentpole single player games on PC, right? So, which I think all of this is timed very cleverly. Um, but those exclusives are going to have to really hit. They're going to have to bang. Otherwise, suddenly, you might consider Xbox, who's going to potentially have Steam games and stuff. You might consider a PC instead. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, PlayStation can't be complacent. I don't think.
no, I think you'll have some people will leave, right?
Mm,
I think the other equation is like you talked about, like people trading physical games. Like, are those? And this is the other. I think the math for Sony are those valuable customers for Sony,
mm.
right? Because if they're not spending in the digital storefront, like I can't imagine Sony assigns equal footing to them to somebody who has a higher ARPU, right? Or consumer
No,
lifetime
yeah.
spend inside the ecosystem. Sony maybe look at those customers like, yeah, we're okay losing those customers because they don't spend inside our ecosystem anyway, you know. Um,
No, no,
but I
of
also
course.
think, yeah, but I
Yeah,
also think that, yeah, I think some people will probably leave, like say, you know what, no, I want to do physical, and I'm going to stay. Maybe I'll just keep my PlayStation 5 and just do more
yeah,
retro gaming,
yeah.
you
That
know,
that's what I do think. Or I think some people may actually just consider other platforms for the flexibility of the digital side of things that they have. Because it's like at that point, if you have to go digital, the key equilibrium or consideration there is their first part do their first party releases, are they frequent and high quality enough for me to have the constraints of digital only on PlayStation? Or can I forego these exclusives and have a more flexible digital options and libraries or whatever
yeah.
on alternative platforms?
My
We'll see.
I also think it's my only thing. I do think it's a little bit bigger than exclusives because I think we're at a
Yeah,
point
I
now
agree.
in the console. It's vendor like it's all about like it's vendor lock in now, right? Like we are locked
Yeah,
into these digital ecosystems. There's reading something like Apple has one of the least amount of um, consumer turnover from the Apple ecosystem,
yeah,
right? And why is that? Because people are just used and locked in, have invested all their time and money in the Apple ecosystem. I think the same thing holds true. Like I always go back to what Phil Spencer said. We lost the most important generation to lose. Right.
I don't know if I agree with that though. I really don't think. I think consumers don't care about backwards compatibility as much as we think.
No, I don't think it's. I'm not arguing backwards compatibility. I'm arguing their digital library, their trophies, their friends list, their movies, things that they've bought on the digital storefront. Right. I don't think it may be.
Yeah,
for
but
some,
then with
it's backwards
multi-platform
compatibility.
games, if multi-platform games and the live service stuff, if it has cross-gen and cross-purchase, it translates over to other platforms like your Fortnites and stuff like that, then it's not as much friction to change over to another other platform as we think, right? It
Well,
will depend
no,
on-
it's not zero, right? Like I don't disagree, it's
Yeah.
not zero, but I still think that that for some people it's harder because they have their friends list, they have their achievements, they may have other games, they may have other forms of entertainment downloaded, right? They may not want to go through the hassle of. I mean, that's if you would ask me like, BRAP, why haven't you moved over to Apple? And I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to set up my email accounts again. No,
you're not doing these stereotypes any good.
I'm not. I'm really not. I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to like sign into X again. Download the X app, sign in again. Like it literally. I know I'm not doing. I'm proving your point.
Yeah, maybe I'm different. With me, like if Xbox
again, I
was...
don't. And I'm sorry. I don't totally disagree with you. I think obviously there's a subset of people that'll be like, I could just leave. My point is, I think there are people that are just I don't want to use the word complacent. They're comfortable inside their ecosystem. We see this at Apple. People don't leave because, and I'm one of them. Like I've been in the Android ecosystem for years now, and I have my.
Do you think trophies and stuff are really that much of a draw?
Yes. For some people, yes. There is some data on that out there about people being locked into these digital ecosystems, the trophies, the friends list, the amount of money they've invested. Because for some people,
like Sakana's user survey data, CMA survey data, both of those, the primary differentiator by far was exclusives. That consumers were responding, why did you buy this platform over the other platform?
It's exclusives of the tiebreaker, right?
Yeah.
But I think once you're locked in though, and you've made exclusives, right? Get your foot in the door. Right.
Yeah.
Now you're buying all these things. You created your user profile, your user identity.
Yeah.
You have friends lists. You have, like I don't want to have to like Nib's not on Xbox. So maybe I don't go on Xbox because Nib's not there. I'm being like these are things like.
But outside of exclusives, what game can't you play with me now if I'm on Xbox?
Well, I'm saying like from a social, obviously there's cross gen or cross platform, but
like everything's cross gen these days.
But what I'm saying is. Yeah, there may be certain games that maybe don't support. I know most do, but maybe you don't have an Xbox account, right? And so I just can't chat with you on the regular while I'm playing a game. And I just from my own experience at Xbox Live, like on Xbox Live, we built communities around just chatting while we're playing different games.
I know that, but because I play,
so people value that. Yeah.
No, I get it, but I would, because the group that I play with, weirdly enough, one's on Xbox, one's on PC. You wouldn't think that, right? PlayStation fanboy or whatever, but like two of my closest people that I play with, they're on other platforms. And I'll be honest, I can't even remember the last multiplayer game that we played where we didn't have cross chat or we couldn't talk over Discord or whatever. Genuinely, everything these days is so accessible because of crossplay. So I think that transition now is much easier. And I know for me personally, I would very easily move over to Xbox as my primary console if it had better.
You heard it here first, guys. Nib is moving to Xbox as primary console.
Yeah, if it the thing is, if it had better multi-platform games and stuff, if the hardware was much more powerful, I probably would switch over have that as my de facto multi-platform console. But what I think, anyway, we're going into a different tangent, but I have a feeling it's going to be similar to this gen, where even though on paper specs, Xbox might be more powerful and performant, I have a feeling that in real world terms, it won't be much of a significant difference, especially because PlayStation's going to have their own, Amethyst partnership customizations and things like that.
Yeah. Again, Nib, I don't totally disagree with you that people can and will leave their ecosystems,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, they do. My only point is that for consoles, there are things in place to lock people in. Like I said, digital libraries, subscriptions, and entitlements.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I don't know how much you mentioned but yes, backwards compatibility to an extent. Social networks, accessories too. Like if you
A PS4 never even had BC, and I remember that's one of the reasons they sold so many remasters and remakes. And I remember there was some data from Xbox themselves because they used to be really big on backwards compatibility, right? And I remember it was some leaked legal documents or something. There was a case, and it showed that very very few people actually took advantage of Xbox's BC, offerings.
Honestly, I didn't care for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, in terms of existing library, again, I'm just not sure it's as important as people think.
And I'm not saying it's like the most important. I'm saying like it is one piece of the equation. It obviously certain there are people that value that more than others. Some people value social networks more than than backwards compatibility. I'm just saying like these are just examples of things that keep people locked in. This is going to go back to me like not switching to Apple, like familiarity with the UI, the account infrastructure. It's like all my information being on Android, right? Like those are things. And again, I'm not saying that it's zero, but I just think it's more difficult to get people to switch over at scale than it maybe was during the PS3, PS4 generation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think ultimately we're talking about all these theoreticals, but I can't see. This is the problem. We have such a vacuum of competition right now.
Nib, would you go from Mercedes to BMW?
Oh, I always do. I've my last car was.
I thought you were diehard Mercedes.
Nah, man. I went back to Mercedes, so I had a Jaguar XFS. Then I had a Mercedes AMG C-Class. Okay. Then I switched to an M3, and now I'm back in Mercedes again. Just because out of the three, I preferred the Mercedes, but I'm completely agnostic to car brands. I don't care whichever. Okay. Yeah,
I know people that won't make the switch. That's why I know people that I'm BMW for life. I'm like, okay.
No, not at all. Yeah. I people think I'm like a PlayStation diehard, right? But genuinely, I do not give a shit about PlayStation as a brand. The only reason I'm so invested, yes, I am a PlayStation-centric gamer, is primarily because they make the games that I love to play. They make my favorite type of games. And if Xbox was to take that mantle, they would become my de facto platform. But they're not making Game of the Year bangers that resonate with me for decades.
Sure,
I
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you just ask me, what's your favorite games of the generation, Xbox isn't really going to have the games in there, whereas Nintendo and PlayStation are going to have multiple games in that list, and hence I'm so invested in that platform. Especially cinematic type of games. I've always loved those games. Even going back, Half-Life 2 is in my top 3 of all time. Resident Evil 4, I would say for those Metal Gear Solid, for the heyday, for those days, they were at the forefront of kind of that. That kind of experience.
Yeah. Well, Nib, I'd love to keep the conversation going, but I have a party I have to go to.
Okay, fair enough.
So thank you for jumping on. I really appreciate
no
I know
worries,
I was supposed to do BRAP last night, and unfortunately I got back home late. So definitely appreciate you coming on and talking video games. It's always a great conversation with you. So certainly appreciate it. I don't know if you want to be found, Nib, but if you want
you can. I don't really care these days. If you care, I am nib95_ on X, NIB95_. But truthfully, these days, I don't even want really more followers. I miss the days when you had a smaller circle that you would communicate with a lot and have in-depth conversations. Now, the more followers, the more trash replies and content you get. And it's just I guess the algorithm is feeding me it, but you just get into these
idiotic little debates and conversations with people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, Nib, thank you again. Always a pleasure. Great having you back on.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and everyone, thank you so much in the live chat for coming out and hanging out with us today. Big shout out to B Money. I see you in the chat. Yeah, wish you were home. Would love to have you on the show. I should be back so long as there isn't any scheduling conflict with sports. Should be back on again Wednesday at 9 p.m. Fingers crossed. But yeah, do the YouTube thing. Hit the like button. Consider subscribing. Hit the bell notification if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. And enjoy the rest of the weekend. And hopefully you're playing some video games. Maybe Call of Duty 4 beta. But if you are playing games, yeah, what's that?
Have you played the beta? If anyone gets Call of Duty Modern Warfare, beta code, DM me it, please. Nib95_. I do want to just test it out, just to see for myself.
No, I haven't played it. I probably won't, to be honest with you. But yeah. So
all right.
But if you're playing video games this weekend, hey, enjoy playing the video games, because that's what it's about. It's about entertainment, folks. It's about having a good time, decompressing, enjoying that game that you're playing, whether it's Call of Duty or Fortnite or maybe something more narrative driven, maybe The Witcher 3.
Yeah. I don't know. I would say, you know what?
About having fun.
If you're maybe you could play it with Mooch or whatever, but honestly, like a great palate cleanser right now, and it's on PS Plus as well. Big Walk. Really fun co-op puzzle game. And it's just nice to have something very different. I don't know if you ever, I don't know how I would describe it, but it's like a light-hearted version of The Witness, but where every puzzle demands all of you work together. And there's something quite novel about that, the fact that you are calculating and doing puzzles in a group where all of your input is really important. So I would honestly recommend if anyone wants to, before the big September rush of really gritty AAA, those kind of games, if you just want something to just, completely different in art style, in what it demands of your mind and everything like that, play Big Walk. Honestly, really, really good game.
No, thank you for that recommendation. I appreciate it. But yeah, everyone enjoy the weekend. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching the show.
All right, laters.